Good evening and thanks for joining us for a special year in review. I'm Nick Blumberg. We hope you're having a great holiday season. Before we ring in 2026, we're taking a look back at some of the major events and notable names that shaped the year. And if your brain's feeling as frazzled as mine is right about now, here's a quick refresher.
We will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
Dio ci vuole bene, Dio vi ama tutti, e il male non prevarrà.
Judge Blakey absolutely took issue with Madigan's decision to testify and willfully perjure himself repeatedly.
The people of Illinois have honored me with this responsibility longer than anyone elected to the Senate in our state's history. I'm truly grateful.
For a century, public transit has been the backbone of our region.
Me sentí muy mal porque yo dije, yo no soy un delincuente, porque me tratan de esa forma.
One thing is clear, none of what Trump is doing is making Illinois safer.
If those city council members are not looking out for working people, then I'm happy to do it on the working people's behalf.
Our city's young people deserve everything and then some.
A world-class city deserves a world-class soccer team, and to have a world-class soccer team, we have to have a world-class soccer stadium to match.
And now to our Week in Review panel. Joining us are Mitchell Armentrout of the Chicago Sun-Times, Melody Mercado of Block Club Chicago, Rima Amin of Chalk Beach Chicago, and Maggie Hendricks of Yahoo Sports. Thank you all for being here. Let's get right to it. So it's been almost a year now since President Trump's second inauguration. We'll get to the administration's aggressive immigration enforcement in just a moment, but I want to start by asking each of you for one other issue where you see Trump 2.0 as having a major impact on Chicago. Mitch, what's on your radar?
The biggest thing on my radar is the public health factor. We've seen Trump's new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., install a lot of vaccine skeptics in the administration, already rolling back some guideline or recommendations for families as far as vaccinations for infants. We learned in COVID that you can't really take a state-by-state approach to public health, and Illinois is trying to sort of implement its own vaccine recommendations, but it's hard to imagine that there's not going to be some pretty dire effects down the road.
Yeah, quite a patchwork that's being created. Melody, what about you?
I think we've seen tariffs and changes with the various visa programs affect a lot of people locally and nationally, but specifically the Seibel Institute, which is the oldest brewing institute in the United States. Think the Pabst Brewing, Coors Light, like all those people went to that institution located in Chicago. They're relocating to Canada at the beginning of next year as a result of difficulties with their students' visas, and a lot of them are international. I would say that's a very direct impact of the Trump administration locally.
Absolutely. Rima, what are you looking at?
Yeah, this administration has made clear that they want to dismantle the federal education department, but at the same time, they've also made clear that they want schools across the country, including right here in Chicago, to operate on policies in ways that they prefer. In Chicago alone, the federal government has cut funding for certain programs for CPS at a time where CPS was facing a very big budget deficit. So, and that was in regards to programs that they viewed to be discriminatory to white students or to students who don't identify as transgender or gender nonconforming. So I'll be really curious to see if they continue to take steps in that direction next year.
Yeah. Maggie, what are you watching?
I mean, in the world of sports, the thing that has been huge is, again, going after trans women and non-gender conforming athletes, because the executive orders that he has put in has made it so trans people can't compete at any level. And so even things like local cyclocross races are being affected, that trans women can't compete. And it's it's just like a local race and they still can't compete.
Yeah, it's not just NCAA D1. This is happening at every level.
Exactly.
Well, I do want to get to Operation Midway Blitz. You know, Melody, the Trump administration certainly lived up to its vow of aggressive immigration enforcement and well exceeded its kind of original plans to go after the so-called worst of the worst. You've been on the Block Club team that's following the impact of that kind of on the ground in Chicagoland communities. What sort of effect have you seen on people's day-to-day lives from that enforcement surge?
Yeah, I think it's changed, one, how the immigrant community moves in Chicago. We've seen a lot of people, whether they're documented or undocumented, scared to leave their homes because they don't want a Border Patrol or ICE officer to come up to them and demand that they see sort of documentations of being a citizen. We've seen nonprofits and rapid response networks really step up to the moment to advocate for the members of the immigrant community, whether that be hosting Know Your Rights workshops, handing out whistles for people to blow when ICE is in the area, and even connecting people with free or low-cost legal services. We've also have seen local officials really step up in their neighborhoods as well, whether that be at the local level, some alder people, the mayor, or the governor, really trying to put in some sort of safety network to try to help people as much as possible stay safe.
Yeah, it's certainly changed just the day-to-day life on sidewalks in many Chicago neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
You know, you would see just once bustling areas somewhat vacant. You know, to that point about local officials, Mitch, we've seen, folks on the ground, state reps, alders out there with whistles. We've also seen, efforts to kind of stymie enforcement, rein in some of the potentially dangerous tactics, lawsuits, many from Attorney General Raul, new laws at, from the state level on down. Do you think that pushback has proven effective, or is it too soon to rate exactly?
I think it's too soon to say on a lot of these efforts. Yeah, like you said, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raul has joined or initiated just about every lawsuit that's been filed against the Trump administration by Democratic-led states. At the state level, lawmakers have passed a few laws that the idea is to sort of tamp down on deportation operations from happening in courthouses or daycares or hospitals, but that's already being challenged by the Trump administration. We're really seeing a push and pull between state and the federal government, and so far it kind of feels like the federal government is winning that with the supremacy clause behind them. But it's, again, this is kind of, you talk to J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson, they say they're doing everything that they can do. We'll see where that takes us next year.
Yeah, I think we're going to be very interested to see where this goes. And I mean, Rima, many of the families swept up in this enforcement push have school-age children. How has this been affecting CPS?
Yeah, we found, earlier this year that after Operation Midway Blitz was announced in September, we saw school attendance dip, and then other news outlets have reported similar dips during increased immigration enforcement actions in their neighborhoods. And when you talk to families, even when you talk to families about their kids, they are scared. They have suffered mental health consequences from even the specter of increased immigration enforcement. And at the same time, the district, individual schools, educators, have tried to step up protecting students and ensuring that they have a safe place to be during the day. And I imagine that if, Greg Bovino is back in Chicago, that there might be some of those same trends next year as well.
Yeah, this certainly is not a story that's going away, and I know you all will be keeping a close eye on it. Switching gears, Maggie, this year saw a South suburban boy ascend to a job never held by American. That's Bob from Dalton, although properly known now as Pope Leo. It felt like his elevation brought out kind of everybody's civic pride, not just Catholics. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. It's so fun to see all of these people will go to an audience in Rome and someone will yell, like someone even yelled to him, we know he's a White Sox fan, right, but somebody yelled, "Go Cubs," and he said, "But they lost." I mean, I love the idea of that possibly the other night the Pope was, either getting up early in Rome or staying up late to watch the Bears game. Like, it's crazy to think about.
He traded the bishop's mitre for one of those cheese grater things they have. Well, okay, how about that? Do we think having a Sox fan in the Holy See is going to help the Southsiders next year?
I think it already did. They just signed somebody that they had no business signing. So I have to think there was a little bit of divine intervention there.
Okay, on a mission from God. All right, Mitch, some late-breaking news before the holiday break. Despite calling this budget immoral and warning that it could be out of whack by mid-year, Mayor Brandon Johnson did not veto the rival plan crafted by alders. He did sign executive orders barring the sale of medical debt and trying to cap police overtime. What do you make of his maneuver there, how he tried to square that circle?
That's the mayor really trying to save face for what's, I mean, pretty indisputably the biggest loss of his tenure so far when it comes to an emboldened city council. You know, this is a budget he was trying to pass with a controversial effort to tax corporations for the number of employees they have, large corporations that is. The business community was dead set against this, the governor was dead set against this, and the majority of the council was too. So the council passed a budget, their own budget, which is just something you don't see in Chicago. And yeah, with his executive order today, he can say that he's taking an effort. A big part of this rival budget proposal is selling some of the city's debt to private collectors, which he calls an immoral move that's going to hurt poorer working families. And with this executive order, he can say he's trying to make sure that the debt collection that does happens in some sort of regulated way, targeting certain people and maybe not the most vulnerable folks out there. But at the end of the day, this is a really big L to take at the end of the year.
Yeah. Melody, it feels like one of the major threads of Mayor Johnson's tenure has been a sometimes tense relationship with alders. I mean, does it feel like there's any chance to repair those bonds after two really tough budget cycles, especially with the city election cycle about to ramp up next year?
I mean, I think a lot of the rhetoric of what we've been hearing from alders that are not part of the progressive inner circle is that they feel left out of briefings, they feel left out of decision making, and specifically with the budget as well. We've heard alders saying that they weren't briefed they were not briefed properly, which in their minds, I'm sure that means maybe week or 2 weeks ahead of time to be able to really sit with the information and understand it. I think that there are a lot of relationships that need to be repaired here. I think that this was obviously a big revolutionary move from past city councils that just sort of rubber stamp what the mayor has wanted to implement in the legislation or the budget. But I think it's really important to note that Brandon Johnson is the most progressive mayor we've had since Harold Washington in the 80s. And I would say that although we are a Democrat-run city, the majority of city council is not as progressive Democrat as Brandon Johnson, and that really showed in this whole budget process.
Yeah, there was almost a tension built into it from the moment he was elected, irrespective of any of the policy choices that they had to make. All right, well, Mitch, after years of rumors and investigations and a lengthy trial last year, this year we saw former State House Speaker Michael Madigan's conviction, sentencing, imprisonment. Did you ever expect to see the golden hammer fall so far, or the velvet hammer, excuse me, fall so far?
It's been such a long saga. I honestly, going through some of the stories this year, I kind of forgot that happened earlier this year.
Right.
His conviction back in February. I mean, it feels like kind of a different lifetime. And thinking back to when this investigation started, I mean, that's pre-pandemic. I mean, this is something that's the city, the state's kind of been grappling with for a long time. But Mike Madigan, I mean, he's the face of Illinois politics for half a century. Not any exaggeration to say that any major piece of legislation from the early 70s through the 2010s, it went through him. And to see this figurehead of Illinois politics go down, it's a seismic shift. At the same time, it's also kind of the end of this era of public corruption trials that have been going through the Dirksen Federal Building. Curious to see what direction the Trump Justice Department goes, because I think it's safe to say there's more corruption going on out there.
Well, Mitch, there's also a big shakeup coming for the state's congressional delegation. We've got Senator Dick Durbin's retirement, 5 contested House seats between folks retiring or pursuing another office. Could all this sort of congressional musical chairs at least temporarily maybe reduce Illinois' clout on Capitol Hill?
We'll see. I mean, it's, I guess, it's all these Democratic seats are going to stay Democratic seats. I don't know how much it's going to change the state's full clout when they head back to D.C., but as far as the clout within the state, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a free-for-all at this point. Dozens of candidates lining up for seats that, you know, really haven't been open or without an incumbent since before I was born in some cases.
Yeah.
It's, again, it's just really, it just goes to show like how seismic of a year this is for politics across the board in Illinois.
Yeah, there's been a thing or two going on around here lately. Another big story this year that came out of Illinois politics, this one more on the good side, most folks would say. Maggie, after this 11th hour deal during the fall veto session, state lawmakers passed a deal to boost transit funding, to restructure the oversight. Definitely, you know, good news for riders potentially, but does it feel like it's still potentially going to take a while for CTA, Metra, Pace to win back the riders that they may have lost over the years?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they have to continue to show or start to show that they can be on time, that you can feel safe on the bus, you can feel safe on the train. They have to make sure that they're sharing stories all the time of people feeling like they can use the bus and the train reliably. And I mean, and I'm even one of those people that I want them to, I would love to take the bus and train more if I don't think there's going to be a ghost bus, you know? So I think the money will help, but they're just going to really have to put the proof in the pudding.
Yeah, and of course with the Federal Transit Administration looming and threatening to remove funding, maybe that'll rally Chicagoans to their side, though. You never quite know.
Maybe I'll stop people, have people not yelling about how bike lanes ruin everything anymore.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know about all that.
Chicagoans love to yell about that. All right, well, Rima, now former CPS CEO Pedro Martinez pushed out for his refusal, at least in part, to back some major borrowing by CPS. His tenure ended in June. The mayor's handpicked successor, Maculin King, also was very skeptical of those sorts of borrowing efforts. Were you surprised to see that maybe disagreement with the mayor that chose her?
I think everyone was surprised to see that. She came from the mayor's office, Dr. Maculin King, who continues to be the interim CEO. So there was this thought that she will align with the mayor's office, and she didn't. She proposed a budget for this fiscal year that rejected the idea of taking out a loan to help the city pay a much debated municipal pension payment. Part of this, I think, in a big story of this year for CPS is that there is a very large, partly elected school board. And I think the influence from members of that board who didn't want to make that payment, who didn't want to borrow, and then outside groups who also opposed that move were really influential in helping craft the eventual budget that CPS did pass.
Well, yeah, speaking of Dr. King serving in an interim capacity, it seemed like the search for a permanent school CEO was kind of getting close to the finish line. Then we heard from the mayor who said, no, it's still ongoing. What do we know about where that process stands?
Yeah, so last month there were 2 finalists, and now we know who those folks are, former schools chief in New York City, current superintendent of schools in Denver. But as soon as those names came out and as soon as it was made public that the school board was getting really close, there were some local organizations, including the Chicago Teachers Union and the West Side branch of the NAACP, that kind of took issue with the process. They were angry that the names weren't, being made public. They were also, the NAACP in particular was concerned that Dr. King had been removed as a finalist, or rather didn't make it to that stage.
Sure.
And so it seemed like the whole process had suddenly gone on pause. They were expected to hire someone by the end of this month. We don't quite know where the process stands, but we do know a couple school board members confirmed that they are, in their words, recalibrating the process, and it's possible we'll see, it's possible they're interviewing other folks and that we might see a new leader picked by the school board in the next couple months.
Well, and another big story that happened earlier in the year, to your point about being like, wait, did that happen this year? This was a long-awaited contract with the CTU got done. The first time in 15 years there was a contract deal without at least a strike authorization vote. Do you think there's a thaw in relations between the teachers union and the district and city leaders, or is it too soon to tell?
You know, I think there's certainly there certainly continues to be tension on that front, and I don't think it's exactly something that's going away. Again, we have an elected school board. It will be fully elected next year. We will have those elections next year, and I think the union, just like other interest groups, is going to be pushing to continue to have influence in city politics and school board politics, and I think the tensions that arose from those negotiations are still, for many people, still very fresh.
Yeah, not necessarily something that's dissipated with the signing of the contract.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, Maggie, in a pleasantly surprising development, the Bears are quite good this season. Still some nail-biters in these games, though.
I have to think that cardiologists are just making a mint off of the Bears right now because they're trying so hard to make things interesting. Particularly this past weekend was very interesting, but it's also, it's just fun. It's fun to proudly wear a Bears shirt and proudly, and see a team that's having fun too. It's like, that's who you want to cheer for.
Well, and does it feel like this is, the kind of a team that we can expect continued success from, whether it's in the playoffs or next season? What are you looking for?
I mean, I think that we're seeing a good partnership between Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, and we're seeing players like DJ Moore who clearly want to be a Bear for the rest of their life when he's cursing out the other team on national television. So, I mean, when you have those moments, you are seeing not just good for this season, but possibly good into the future. I feel like I need to knock on wood as I'm saying all of these things.
Absolutely. Well, and of course, this is all happening with the backdrop of the team's quest for a new stadium. Latest development, Mitch, is that now they're looking at Northwest Indiana. Do you feel like this journey they're on is going to wrap up anytime soon?
It doesn't feel like it, just because I believe the first time the Bears threatened to move to Arlington Heights was back in 1975, a few years after they got to Soldier Field.
And they threatened Northwest Indiana in '95, so there's a cycle here.
They're going back to the old familiar playbook for sure. And a strange announcement to make, the day before the biggest game the Bears have played in 7 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, completely just throwing cold water on so much excitement that was happening in Chicago. I understand there were probably people that were nosing around and they wanted to get ahead of it, but they could have done this on Monday,
And the Bears have been really trying to get state lawmakers in their corner for 4 years now, but really did not make any new friends by making this announcement, threatening to cross the border to Indiana. They need a pretty significant change to state law, and they say they're running out of time. But again, they've also said the same things for a couple of years in a row now. So.
Yeah, I mean, how about that, Melody? Is this just getting to be the Kevin Warren that cried wolf?
I mean, I think history shows that this is what the Bears do. So, and I think time after time we see that no matter what team asks for it, there is just no appetite to give out public subsidies for a stadium of any kind.
Yeah, we're not exactly flush with cash around here these days. Okay, Maggie, one new team that isn't looking for any public funding for its stadium is the Chicago Fire. This new complex they're planning in the 78. Is that the kind of thing that you think has the potential to draw in new fans with this big splashy development?
Yeah, I think the location of it in particular makes it very easy for fans to get to it. Because right now, going to games at Soldier Field isn't the easiest thing. When they were at SeatGeek Stadium, really wasn't the easiest thing to get to. So this kind of thing, there's great public transit to it. I mean, it's just right off of Roosevelt. So, I mean, I think you would even be able to take the water taxi there. So I think there's a lot of excitement around it of when it's built. And you know what? I'm pretty excited of the idea of going to a stadium that my tax dollars did not help build.
Well, and especially someplace that's been such a long-running vacant site, has such a troubled history. You got to imagine they're pulling in some goodwill by people can see that, hey, they're actually doing something with this.
Yeah, it's always been a crazy thing to me whenever I've driven by that area to even think like, how is that much good land just sitting there. And the idea that there's going to be something that is an anchor and brings everything together is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch out for. I think they're planning to break ground early in 2026. Well, we've got about a minute left, but I want to get to Maggie. It was a bit of a tough season for the Chicago Sky, despite having a really talented team. What are you going to be watching out for next season?
I think the biggest thing right now in the WNBA is getting a contract between the players and the league. And so if that doesn't happen, we won't be watching any basketball at all. But if we are, it'll be watching for the health of Courtney Vandersloot and seeing if she can come back from that awful ACL tear in an exciting game. So
well, and it's going to be a real bummer, especially how much momentum women's basketball has had behind it in the last couple of years. If there is a strike, if there is a lockout.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the players have so much power in this position because they can. This isn't like the NFL where you can't go play for another league. They have many, many options. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see how it all shakes out because the players really are the ones in the powerful position.
Well, you four are all in a very powerful position, talented journalists that you are, but we are out of time. So our thanks to Mitchell Armentrout, Melody Mercado, Rima Amin, and Maggie Hendricks. And we're back to wrap things up right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation. Additional support is provided by
And that's our show for this Friday night. Stay connected with our reporters and what they're working on by following us on Instagram at WTTW Chicago. Now for the Week in Review, I'm Nick Blumberg. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay informed. Happy New Year's. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
All right. Well deserved. Y'all did a great job tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, before we go, each year brings with it, you know, the little tragedies. The one that really got to me this year was that the rat hole was probably made by a dang squirrel. How are you all holding up with this news?
I would just like to say a lot of science went into figuring that out, and I just feel like you could have just let Chicago have rat holes.
right.
But also, you just know that there was a scientist that was like,
well, actually,
focuses on rodents and was like, wait.
Right.
That did not have the right
rat.
shape to be a rat.
Right.
You know? And you kind of got to appreciate a scientist like that.
You gotta respect the niche knowledge that someone has and saying, sorry, I just can't let this one slide.
There was something in there.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that gives back to its community in Chicago and beyond.